Hi, everybody. So, this week in my message with Spirit, they actually, as this was like setting up and coming in, they already kind of started to bring through information. Um, and it's no surprise because if you follow me on any of my social media, then you'll know that well, maybe you don't know. If you dig into my stuff and you are following along close enough and seeing enough of the content, you'll know that I made a big shift about a year or so ago, maybe even a little longer now, where the content that I give is less around the strategy and it's more specifically as to what spirit asks me to share. Um, Now, I have a marketing background and I know how these things work. So I kind of still integrate a little bit of strategy, my own linear process and thought process around what they share and how I deliver that. But the reality of the situation is that the content that I come up with is inspired by what they want me to be talking about, the way that they want me to be presenting information, like whatever specific topics or they feel is most needed for me to be putting out there and sharing on their behalf. And so um what's been coming up, and I was just having this conversation with someone this morning, what's been coming up is for me personally super aligned to exactly where like my bullseye niche, it is, which is all about moving, being in a space of reflection. I'm sorry. So they're communicating with me as I was like kind of talking what they already gave me. They're like interrupting, so I'm censoring myself is a better word, I guess, to say. But they're saying, um, you know, it's funny because I don't think of it this way, but they're saying that so much of what I do is with the intention and purpose to get people to inwardly reflect on what it is that is coming to an end, what needs completion, what needs closure, what needs to be released and let go of so that we can move into a space where you are now coming from new programming, a you know, having a new experience in life, letting go of that struggle, letting go of that stuckness. Um, it's been really there's they're just saying that this is so much the energy now. This is everything is lining up. Everything is in this vein right now. The moon, the conversations people are having, um, in the Hebrew calendar or those that follow Judaism, Kabbalah, this is um, the month, the last month of the year. And it's again, it's all about this with intention, with real intense focus. They're saying it's more because they're saying to me it's more than just intention. It's about, let's say, it's not their word, it's the way that they're making me feel. It's like this really intense focus. It's being so in a space of almost like having blinders on. They're like, you know, hunker down, right? For those of you that are, we are not out of hurricane season here in the state of Florida or anywhere where that experiences hurricanes. It's still hurricane season. And so, when we go into a hurricane, you'll hear the phrase on the news and the radio, everybody's saying hunker down, hunker down, hunker down. And so they're using that um same phrase to say, this is what we're asking you to do. And it's interesting because they're saying, we talked about this last week. They're saying there's so many people that are experiencing sort of this storm that's coming through. We're seeing it, you know, politically around the world, economically around the world. We're seeing this in our own lives. And there's this breaking down of systems and structures, including the ones that we have internally. And this is not just an external thing. This is also internal. Internally, there is an evolution that is happening in the collective, in humanity, that is shifting the beliefs and your internal systems. And we talked last week about how they were saying it needs to be a shifting in the way that we relate and have relationship to others, and see ourselves as part of that collective. And so they're saying there's a storm. I would say there's a shitstorm in many ways, internally and externally, in our small sphere of awareness and that which we interact with, and in the larger collective globally, right? And so just the same way that when we are going into a hurricane situation, we're being told to hunker down. They're saying they are calling us to right now hunker down, and they're going back to now as they're talking to me. They're going back to this Hebrew calendar, saying it's the last month of the Hebrew calendar. This is the time of year where you are asked to go within, not in the hibernating way of germinating and kind of tending to that which is to come the way we will in a couple months, but that it's going into, it's, first of all, it's not an extended stay. They're saying like this is something, even like 2 weeks is the time frame they're actually saying to me right now, to go into this space for like the next 2 weeks. For some people this has already started. You've been feeling this, they're saying to me right now as I'm saying it out loud. Really, this was like 4 days ago the energy around this started. So if you've been feeling this kind of way, where you have been feeling like you want to withdraw, but it's all about reflection. It's all about inner reflection. They're saying this is the key first step. That reflection, they're saying to me, is going to lead to a revealing. That revealing then allows us to understand where we need to release and where we need to sort of reprogram, rebuild, where we need to make these tweaks, make these shifts of things that are no longer for us. And there's it's funny because when I said that out loud, they said a lot of it never was. It's things that we have picked up and taken on our own, but it was never actually for us. Though some things are just not for us anymore. And they're saying they want us to think about this as completion, not as endings. They want us to think about this as completion, not just a focus of saying this isn't good for us or this is negative or this needs to be released. It's funny because I understand the difference, but I'm just kind of reiterating this to any of you listening, watching. There's a difference between saying we are completing this and saying I am releasing it because I don't want it anymore, or it's not good for me anymore, or um there's like a negative connotation or association. And so they're making this delineation to clear that out. Like they're saying don't worry about that. What needs to be completed, and I don't really know Why? Honestly, I haven't gotten that this this specific slant on it. I've been kind of keeping in general saying like it's the things that need to end, the things that have ended. Where do you need closure? Where are you releasing that which um doesn't serve? I've been saying all the things and they're saying no. They really this week as part of this 2-week reflection process and kind of closure process, they're saying focus on what needs to be completed. um, so things that need to come to an end, good or bad, things yeah, because I was gonna say things that don't serve you anymore. They're saying it's not about that. They want us to not be focused on trying to figure out what doesn't serve us. They're saying you naturally know things that need to come to completion. They're saying part of the reason why they are laying so heavy into this idea about completion is because when we say something is completed or needs to be completed or has been completed, there's they're using the word compassion. They're saying there's compassion around it. There's less judgment around it. It seems more like a natural we start, go through, and complete. Start, go through, and complete. It's more of this like natural, very tolerated, very allowed cycle that we don't always allow ourselves sometimes when we're looking at something needing to be ended or released. And so it's about this they want us to go into this with a different kind of approach, with a different perspective of saying just view this as a natural cycle that has to take place. And so there doesn't need to be a judgment or a criticism. They're saying, and I talked about this a little bit. I don't remember if it was my post or if it was the email that I sent out to people that are on my email list on Friday. Um, about the energy around this full moon, which is happening today. Technically, here in the Eastern, the moon was at full capacity at like 2:09 or something this afternoon, even though we didn't see it. But um, that, this is tying in the Hebrew calendar, the energy that spirit is bringing through, and the moon are all layered together. Everything is saying the exact same thing over and over. Like it's just being repeated in all these different forms and fashions. And when I ask about that, they say it's because different people need to hear it different ways. Some people need to hear it about like the Kabbalah Hebrew calendar. Some people need to hear about it and so they can relate and take it seriously as the moon phase and the astrology of it, right? Some people need to hear it, and so that's why we're hearing this repeating message in all of these things right now, and the way that they're all lining up together. Because again, I was saying this to somebody else earlier. There's always a blood moon in September. That's not unique, y'all. That's not even my thing, and I know that's not unique. Every month, the full moon has a name for it, and it's the same every single year. That's not different. What is different, of course, is the other things that are happening astrologically around this moon, and that shifts all the time. And that's why there's different energies and meanings and takes on what the energy culminated in the full moon is. Just like each energy of and meaning and focus and intention for each Hebrew and Kabbalah month, which interestingly does not line up with our Gregorian calendars that we tend to operate off of, but actually aligns with the astrological. So this last month-Elul is aligns with the astrological sign of Virgo, which starts towards the second half of it starts in the second half of August and moves through to the middle of September. And this is the energy, and that's the other piece to this message that they want me to talk about, is that to remember that they're asking us to go into reflection about what needs completed, but they're also saying part of that completion cycle that needs to take place is so much around forgiveness. So as you're reflecting, understand and recognize, where do you need to be offering, giving, um and again, this is never an it has to be an outward practice. This is something that you do internally. This is something that you do for yourself, around the idea of what relationships do you need to forgive? What people have an element that you need to forgive? And those people can include yourself. Those people, as I said, that they said, and God. For there's a lot of people that grew up in particularly Christian religions that we have these religious wounds. And so there there may be a part of you that needs to forgive this God figure, or the religious leaders, or just the idea of the religion that you grew up in, that you were a part of. Again, the forgiveness is an energy. It doesn't have to be a person, and it doesn't have to be anything that you outwardly do. It can be forgiving yourself some of the beliefs and the programs, the wounds, the negative voices, the negative scripts, whatever that is. It can be forgiving yourself for bad choices, for things you wish you would have done that you didn't do, and you can't get back. You can't do it again. Um, I bring that up, and they're saying to me, as that came out, because I that's one of those moments where I'm channeling and I didn't mean to actually to go there with, but they're saying this regret, this, if you have things in your life that you, so hold on, let me gather my tongue here again. I'm gonna let them finish. Ooh, I just got chills when I went to start to speak again. So this is going to be very important for somebody, many people maybe, to hear. They're saying we talk so much about shame, guilt, judgment, regret around the things that we did that we have deemed wrong. Wrong choices, wrong behaviors, the wrong way that we've acted or engaged with whatever, ourselves, in our health, and in business, in our career, whatever that looks like. They're saying there's not enough talk about the regret, the shame or guilt that we might carry around the things that we actually didn't do. The things that um the things that we wish we would have been able to do and would have done at some point in time and didn't, out of fear or a sense of obligation. So it's about finding ways to forgive yourself, not for the things you've done, but for the things that you actually didn't do. So that's a really important. It's so funny, as I literally just felt that, like, here in my heart too, going up into my throat. So that's a really important piece. It's a really important thing that they want us to remember to move into. They make me feel like that's pretty complete, and I try and keep this like around 20 minutes. So we're hitting that 20-minute mark, but just to recap, what they're saying is remember to reflect, that we are in a time of reflection that they're saying started 4 days ago, and they're asking for it to be 2 weeks long. So again, if you are feeling really maybe even sensitive, emotional, if you're feeling like you want to be really introverted, withdrawn, like I said, or it's funny, they're saying to me that there's like a tenderness, there's kind of like this underbelly, this vulnerability. They're reminding me about the analogy around what growth looks like is the same growth process that a lobster goes through. And so, or even crabs and lobsters, when their shells, their hard exterior becomes so uncomfortable, it becomes painful to them, is when they are outgrowing it. And then what they have to do is go to the deeper parts of the ocean, and they do that to protect themselves. They do that because they must shed that old shell, and then they have to stay there and stay under the rocks and in those caverns and in those deep parts, because they're so soft and so vulnerable that this is their form of protection until this new shell that fits them right and can be comfortable. And then once that is hard enough and built up enough, then they come back up towards the surface. And so they're saying this is a great analogy. If you're feeling like you really want to retreat, if you're feeling really soft, if you're feeling really vulnerable, if there's a rawness to the way that you're kind of feeling, this over emotionalness, and you don't really know where it's coming from, know that this is a completion of the phase of growth that you are in, and you are about to cycle out of it. So honor that softness that you are, protect yourself, stay introverted, and know that while you're in that sort of space, that soft space, they are calling you to be deep in reflection of completion and putting it in the perspective and framework of this is a completion process. And also look at and do whatever practice feels good and right for you around forgiveness. What needs to be forgiven of others, in past relationships, of yourself, of things you've done. And don't forget, most importantly, maybe for some of you listening, oh, because I just got the chills again, um, is around forgiving yourself for the things you didn't do. Okay. So I hope that this finds you all well. I know this maybe is going to be a tough week for some people. Virgo, Pisces, Saturn retrograde, it's all the stuff. Lunar eclipse, full moon, um, plus the stuff we just talked about. None of that is like easy peasy necessarily. It's, can be a little murky and a little mucky and not feel great. So if that's the case, if that's kind of how you're experiencing, take care of yourself. Know that you're always welcome to reach out to me. I would love it, and I would so, so, so appreciate it if you make sure you subscribe so you always know about new videos that I'm putting out there, new content that I'm creating for you. Like them, share them, comment below, and never be afraid to message me about questions or things you want to talk about. Even if it's something private and you just need a little support, I'm here for you. So, all right, everyone, have a great week. Thanks so much.